So this property, the legal stances, well, I say legal stances on property are as well about mechanisms that are not just a political decision, but as well a decision in terms of the economics. It's about economics of scale. Private property may not be possible due to the needed economies of scale. Railways, public transport. There's a change as well when it comes to toll goods, that today private resources are so huge that they are looking for profitable spheres of investment, that they can actually take over from the state what had been up to recently only possible, only profitable, or only feasible for the state. In general, it is about the exclusion, the possibility to exclude anybody, and subtractability as criteria, but as well the criteria of distribution. What are the accepted, what are the wished objectives of investment? As I said, education. If it is about public interest in education, you want to make sure that everybody is able to avail of it. And if you have to pay for it privately, it may not be possible. And then again, production and market and demand, supply and demand, play a role in different ways. That of course you may be able to provide a service, to provide goods cheaper if it's undertaken privately in certain areas, but not in others. As I said, there is a shift, and we have in European countries this major shift towards privatization, as well privatization of postal services. And it is cheaper in many areas, but at the same time, it is cheaper in the centers. But if you live somewhere in the rural area, actually it is not available at all. So this is something you have to consider as well. What is the objective? What are the aims? And what are the accepted values? Is it accepted that some people are excluded from the use of certain goods or services? And then you may find other ways of distribution, and you would have this pattern that you see with Bill Gates as one of the richest people, or even the richest currently, I think, who says, I make so much money out of my private business that I have my foundation, and there I provide something that is not marketable. And mentioning this, there is one important aspect actually, obviously, or getting obvious there, that when it comes to medical service, you have pharmaceutical products controlled by the private pharmaceutical industry. They are so expensive that they cannot be bought, profitably produced in certain countries. So the one way out of it is the production of generics, so-called generics. It's the same stuff, basically the same stuff. At the end of the day, what is different is the label. So they produce the stuff for a different market. The other way around is it is actually the provision of needed stuff like this by charities, so-called development aid. This is, of course, then a relevant issue when it comes to GDP. Is it what is included into the calculation of GDP? GDP is one way, actually, of simplifying what we are talking about. Economics has these difficulties even with the capacities of modern computers to calculate through all these things, and it's not just the difficulty of calculating through all variables, but it is as well about the unpredictability of certain variables. I don't know how people behave. I don't know what they are doing in terms of real behavior. So what we have is the market model in economics as a tool, if you want, to deal with complexities. It is not primarily the simplification of reality, but it is the simplification of what counts, what we count in reality, what we consider being relevant in reality. So the one simplification where it starts, this market model, is we use one solution for all. We have one problem, we have one solution, and that's basically it. Demand and supply on an open market. We may have a second one, we may have a second scenario where we say it is two models or two scenarios. We have the open market and we have the closed market. We make the calculations for both of them. But then we have the problem with the second assumption that we say all acts of exchange are equal to each other. So it's this general assumption of exchange being central and being equal. All markets are the same as well. If I have a market for small products, for large products, whatever, for commodities, it doesn't matter. Market is market, following the rule of demand and supply. And with this, everything can be repeated without end. It's this permanent loop of something happening again and again and again and again. Why? Third assumption. It's individual actors acting independently of each other and acting according to a rational rule. Rationality. Rationality being limited, though, by way of saying rationality is about the maximization of utilities. The utility function coming into play here and being the decisive and the only criteria for maximization. I want to maximize my individual utility function, measured in terms of commodities, measured in terms of the economic side of it, in terms of economic activities, in terms of goods on the market. Admittedly, we have a huge problem there, and this is actually why we have this in place, that the original version of, of utilitarianism said it's about the greatest happiness of all. What is happiness? Happiness is if the sun shines and I can sit in the sun, enjoy the day. Not for us in economics, we cannot deal with this. So we put a value onto it, and we say it is about the value of alternative, of opportunity cost. What can I do instead of sitting in the sun? What can I produce instead of sitting there? Meaning, implied is a fifth assumption. What counts is the consumer, not the producer. The consumer buys goods, buys commodities. It's not the producer. And as we are interested in this kind of happiness, greatest happiness for all, it is the consumer that is the most important. And they are equal. Sixth assumption. The consumers and the producers are immediately transferred to the consumer. If I produce, I consume as well. I consume the means of production, I consume labor power. And I am equal with all other consumers. Equality, the sixth consumption. And it is equality right at the moment, now, here and now, but it is as well seventh of a space and time. Tomorrow I'm the same consumer as today, as I had been 10 years ago, as I will be in 50 years. If I'm living in Changsha or in Bangor, where you may go, or in India, or in wherever you go. with this individual consumer behaving rationally, I have another, the eighth assumption, which is complete information. I know how I will behave in 5 years or next year or next month, and I know how all the rest of actors, market actors, will behave. If you don't believe it, that's okay. It's just the assumption we make. Of course, we do not know what is going on next year. The pattern of behavior may change or may have changed then. Our preferences may have changed. Or the conditions may have changed. This is something we do not take into consideration in this model. It is the complete freedom as well that we don't have to do things on the market. We can decide how we behave. It's our personal decision. We can buy whatever we want. We can do things ourselves as we want to do them, DIY. There is no limitation. We are completely free in what we are doing. And then as final thing, it is this immediate change of position. We can consume, we can produce. There is no limitation in terms of changing our role in the entire process. These are the model assumptions of the market model. And with the economics we are dealing with the market capitalist society or economy, we always refer to these assumptions and make all further considerations on the basis of this. Anything else is not considered, or it is considered in a different way, as a kind of add-on, if you want. This is where different economic paradigms come into play, where different schools came into play, where they said, yes, it's fine, we have this. But at the same time, we have institutions. We have behavior which is not rational. Behavioral economics, institutionalists. We have a state that for whatever reason, and for different reasons, intervenes. Sometimes for reasons of values, of political goals, education for all, or sometimes simply for political needs. And then you have these major events like Black Death, medieval ages, Renaissance, where this was simply destroying the conditions of life, where you have wars, where you have political decisions where the state says, well, It does not say, well, leave it to them. They are fighting. Where you have this intervention, the need of intervention. And then you have other interventions on a much smaller scale. If you have traffic, if you have 9 million people living in a city, and I don't know how many people are driving on the public roads, you cannot simply say, it's fine. They'll find a way. They regulate themselves. To some extent it happens. I'm always surprised seeing people going the one way. In the morning I saw again somebody at 5 o'clock or something like this, 5:30, driving the wrong way on the main road. Thought it's a little strange, but okay, at 5 o'clock you can do it. But you have regulations. You have traffic lights. And if it's during the rush hour and you just cross the junction, it may cause some difficulties with the police. And then you have these phases where things change, where you didn't have any regulation because things worked out fine. And then there is more and more traffic. You have it here a little bit, but you have it in a different way and more in Europe. When I lived in Ireland, my neighbor, many years ago, living in the countryside, went to the city, to Cork, which is a small place. But he was talking to his wife. It was in the middle of summer or something, and he said, "Yeah, starting damned early with the Christmas lighting, with the Christmas light, aren't they?" And she said, "No, this is a traffic light, and actually you have to stop." So you have to get used to new regulations, which is not simply following the rational rule, but of course it is something of changing rationalities as well. So you have the model, you have a reality. The reality is not only more complex. This is something we can easily deal with. There's no problem in putting more variables into these calculations with models. The difficulty, the real difficulty, is that we are facing contradictions, irrationalities, or that the outcome of collective behavior is different to what we do individually. We are standing there, we want to see more. It's one way, very simple, standing on your tiptoes, or even if it's available, standing on the chair. What does the person behind you do? Getting a chair and standing up. What happens at the end of the day? Nobody can see any better. Because we changed the wrong rule. We try to look for our own benefit, prisoner's dilemma. We try to look at our own benefit, and the effect, externalization, the effect is a negative one, because we are all standing in the same position at the end. Or the last 10 people who don't find a chair, the socially excluded, they have the problem, they have the cost to bear. Final point, and then you can write the exams on the chance. Individuality, reference to the individual means reference to the contracts. Contract and commodification are the main issues. We talked about commodification. It is production, the orientation of production geared towards the market as means of gain, realizing gain. Putting everything into this area, not doing any voluntary work, don't help anybody if they don't pay for it. Anything else is not rational, at least not according to the model. So gain-oriented, market-oriented, and don't do anything without a contract. This is the other principle there. The contract is the confirmation of individual relationships. I'm not responsible for anything else or anybody else than what is regulated by the contract. Conditions for the contract: free will. If whatever it means you are forced to enter this contract, it's not a contract. And it is not least, or it means not least, if you are forced to enter this contract. You may be forced to enter a contract. I've never been, or this time I've never been on the island where I assume you can pick now oranges without problems. I don't know if it is allowed and what is going on there. But there are certain things, certain items you cannot take from anywhere without stealing. Maybe that you can steal some oranges on the Orange Island. I don't know how it works, if it is protected. I don't know actually if it's only the name Orange Island or if there are oranges. But if this time of the year where you have oranges, and to avail of certain items, there is only one way, and that is entering a contract, but not this contract. Free will, I can decide where I buy. I can decide with whom I enter this contract. So this is freedom. It's not the freedom of, or the decision, do I enter a contract or not? Of course, to some extent it is as well, but in some cases we simply have to avail of something, and that may be only possible via a contract. It is a decision, it's a contract, it's an agreement between at least two partners, a formal agreement, and these partners are equal. Both sides can agree or can decline. I can say, I don't want to buy from you, but from you. I know I have to buy something. But if I come to you, you can say, sorry, not for you. For whatever reason. You don't have to have a reason, actually. But go to somebody else. So freedom on both sides, a formal agreement. So, and this is the decisive thing. After agreeing, we have certain obligations and certain rights. If it's the agreement on buying a commodity, I have to give you the agreed money, the agreed amount of money, and you have to give me the commodity, the product. You cannot say, we agreed upon 100 yuan, but actually I think 90 is enough. Just, you can do it, but you don't have any right. Only 100 yuan if 100 yuan is in the contract. And if it is the contract about this and that amount of commodities, it has to be that. If it is about a jacket, it is about a jacket, and you cannot say, but actually I'll keep the sleeves of it. This is as agreed upon. Mutual obligations, I have to give it to you, you can avail of it, and mutual obligations, meaning both sides are in the same boat in this way of formally equal partners. And then finally, it is only about what we had been dealing with in the contract, what we agreed upon. You sometimes see this in catalogs, advertisements. This is exactly the reason for it. You see, I don't know, some batteries now, these additional batteries for your phone to recharge them. And they have in the catalog the battery they want to sell and the phone and the cable. And then you have a note, battery so-and-so, power specifications, and excludes phone and cable. This makes it clear that the agreement will be only on the battery. And you cannot say, yeah, well, but you know, now you have the phone and the cable, just give it to me. It's fine. Of course you can say it, no obligation, no right. Formally agreed, the battery, nothing more. And it has to specify exactly what is in it. Usually it's fine. Usually there's no conflict. But sometimes it is. If there's something that you actually have to, you buy something, and you are there is a follow-up obligation, you can only use it when you use this company. For instance, phones. I don't know how it is in China, but you buy a phone from the phone shop, China Mobile, and you can use this phone only with China Mobile. But they told you in the shop, you can use this phone with any network. Usually these things are made clear, but sometimes it's not, and then you may have a legal fight over it. The other point that is important as well, a formally agreed contract can mean different things. In the strict sense, it means a signed contract outlining all relevant items. what it is, the quality of it, the conditions, and all that. Usually. So basically, if you go into the shop and buy a bottle of water, the correct way of doing it is go there, go to the shopkeeper, say, no, I want to have this. What's the price? And then you negotiate possibly, and then you draw up a contract, and you sign a document, and then you can take the water with you, and the contract says everything, how much it is, the quality of the water, and everything. Did you ever do it? Probably not. You go into the shop, you take it off the shelf, pay whatever you have to pay, and it is a contract. Even if nobody signed, it is a contract, and if the water is substandard quality, or if the water is not water at all, but something that is much, much nicer, you still have the right and say, I bought water. I didn't buy champagne. Even if you may say it's better, it's not. I want to have water. So every time we go to a shop, we buy small items, it is a contract. It is sometimes as well a difficult thing when it comes to larger items, where there is this bonus fide that we don't think about all the conditions. We just agree upon something, take things for granted, and we can do it. There is no problem, but it could be a problem. It could be as well a problem with the water. And this is where I stop with the lecturing, stop with the recapitulation. We have now two options basically, well, not really options in some way. As I say, I will stop here with the lecture, and then we can move on. If you have specific questions, you can ask them. And otherwise, the next part will be actually, so it's not just enjoying the fun, this would be another option, but we still have to talk about the essays.